Every single person can be rich. Why? Because I love talking about money. I talk about money like it's a sport. Because one of my first businesses ever was selling candy and lollipops and chocolates. Campion.
I
We
think
are wired for survival, which means that it's best for us to do things that benefit us because it's in alignment with who we are internally. Which I think more people would be working longer hours if they had financial freedom because you'd realize that work is actually a big part of your life and bigger than you thought. So if you don't want to do business and you don't want to do things in correct order, probably you'll work until you die, and that's fine. There are lots of people who do that, and they're fine.
You get high, yo. High. You get live, yo. Get live.
Boom. Welcome back to the Yardman Podcast, the number one Jamaican podcast in Murcia, Spain.
number one Jamaican podcast in all of Europe.
And we're slowly going to conquer the world. I am your host, Davaine.
And this is Tonniel, your co-host,
Yeah.
the boy.
Yeah, man. And today we're joined by Kadeem Leslie to just have a reasoning. Everyone that comes on this podcast, we normally ask them the same first question. And that question is, what is your purpose on this planet?
I think my purpose is to serve, right? My first name is Kadeem. It's from the Arabic word kadem, which means servant. And so I think my purpose here on earth is to serve as many people as possible. And, in so doing, it obviously is very fulfilling in multiple ways. But I think serving people and serving people in the way that best aligns with their vision for their life has been really my calling. So I love doing that.
You're part of anything that has to do with community service?
Of course. So you may not know this. I'm not to throw this out there, but we do give away 2 scholarships to students in Jamaica every single year. And so that has been really, really fulfilling to me. And then also, of course, I have so many free materials on YouTube. I have free courses, free training. And I'm that community member. I'm helping people because of the internet, which is just amazing, able to help people who I've never met in person. People from, Australia, people from India. We're in over 100 countries, helping people to, obviously level up their financial life, but also their career, etc. So it's really been good.
Yeah. Why did you decide to help people? Like, what was your upbringing like that drove you to this path?
Well, you know what? I think I found so much solace in books when I was growing up. Right. So here's the thing. I've been reading a book a week for like the last more than a decade now, right? And if you do the math on that, a book a week over, a decade is more than 500 books. But when I first started reading, you can imagine a book a week, that's $14, $20 per book. That's a lot of money, right? So then what I found is that I could find audiobooks on YouTube for free and PDFs, right? So much information for free. So then YouTube came in handy, free PDFs came in handy, free courses came in handy. And I was one of those students that I didn't just take advantage just because it was free and I would click it and maybe like what 10% of it. Because, people like will add it just because it's free, but they won't come back to it or they won't apply what they've learned. I wasn't one of those people. I didn't have the money, but I needed the information. And so then I know that there are people out there like me who they just need the information, but they can't afford the $10,000 for a mentor right now. But they have time and they have the commitment and they're willing to lose sleep to learn the information. So then in order to add to something that gave to me, I decided to give that information out there.
Which book was the most pivotal in your life?
You know what? That's a great question. But I will say it's not the best book I've read, but it was the most pivotal because of the change that happened after. And it was Think and Grow Rich. Right? So the reason why I say Think and Grow Rich is because before that, I had never read a book on money, never had read a book on success, never had read any book about that. Right? And then because I was a cellist, remember? And so then having read that book, I was like, why does no one talk about this in school? Everybody is so fixated on, learning Microsoft Excel because your boss is going to want you to know this. And then here's this book saying that, hey, you can actually think something in your mind and create it and then just make it happen. And this is how you do that. Wow. That changed my world. And so then obviously everything flowed from that.
So the book taught you how to manifest, right? After learning how to manifest, did you channel into other philosophical books, for example, to heighten your knowledge of manifesting and the powers it can bring? Or
Totally,
that is where it
totally.
stops? Okay.
I think you actually appreciate this because I think the mind is like a garden, right? And the more variety you have in your garden, the more rich the soil is going to be. So then you can't just read business books, right? So then you learn things from spiritual books, you learn things from relationship books, you learn things from psychology, you learn things from biographies too. So then, yeah, I've read tons of different things outside of business. And I would recommend everyone do that because you don't know where that 1 or 2 pages out of that book would be like the exact solution to what you need. And you might read the entire book and it's just 2 pages that you needed from that book, but it's worth it.
Yeah. What's the biggest challenge you faced, like growing up and becoming the man that you are today?
Uh, you know, I think the change is the hardest part, right? Because I know even like people see me now, the first question is, hey, when was the last time you played music? How is the cello? Right? But I'm not that person anymore. Even though I love the cello, it's that I moved. It's no fault of their own. I am the one who changed. But updating the world on that change is sometimes hard. Right? So then, for example, it's like I don't want to talk about going to the club every weekend anymore. It's not what I want to do. I want to talk about real estate. I want to talk about stocks. I want to talk about what's going on in the Japanese interest rates right now and why the market is crashing. The crypto market is crashing or why interest rates are affecting. These are the things I want to talk about now. But again, I'm the one who's changed. So then it's like, why are you switching up on me? And I get it. I get it. I'm changing. But I think that part is harder trying to explain that to people. So then,
Yeah. Yeah, we get that. We get that. Sometimes you change, but yeah, also with the change, you need to change the people around you. Them say he's a sum of the 5 closest person around you. So that could be a possibility. But when I was thinking about challenges, like what was it like for you growing up in Jamaica? Like I don't know anyone that played cello, and I went to JC. If you played cello at JC, you would be bullied. I never think you're
oh man.
uptown.
Oh, trust me, I was bullied. Oh, yeah, of course, of course. In fact, I remember I've never told this story. I've never ever told this story. One day I was rehearsing. This is so cool. It's so cool that you get this. I was in a library and I was practicing the cello, and someone didn't like me playing cello. And I watched her. She tore a paper out of her book and threw it at me as I was practicing in the library at Campion College. I've never told that story, but it actually happened. And I don't know where she is now. But I had been trained to, not react, that people would not understand, whatever, because I was on a mission. So I was pretty focused. But that could break somebody, right? That was a very horrifying experience. And I wasn't performing. I was just practicing by myself. And she literally, that was my first, I guess, tomato moment. Thank God it wasn't a tomato. Though. But
Practicing.
yeah, that actually happened. Yeah.
I want to know why you chose the cello out of other musical instruments. Why the cello?
Well, I think the cello is the closest to the human voice. I mean, I think definitely for men, because our voices are deeper. I think the double bass is a little bit too deep, but then also the violin is that's a little bit annoying, right? So you bring it to the middle, and I think the cello just gets both things done really, really well. And I also tried the double bass before. I didn't like it, so the cello was really my voice.
Okay, interesting.
So you transition from music to money, essentially, and how money is made, the foundation of money. How did you get into that? How did you, apart from the book that you read, how did you create that path for yourself, for someone else that might want to do something similar, someone that's interested in the stock market, real estate? How did you go from point A to point B to your level of success now?
What I will tell you is that it's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, right? It's extremely hard. Change is so, to not make this seem more dramatic than it is, it's a violent process to change your mind because you have to tear yourself apart from yourself, right? So then you have to create something new and tear the old version out, right? Which is, if you ever gutted a house, it is not a pretty process, right? But I think if you are doing it every day, what you'll find is that over a year or two, you wake up one day and be like, oh, my thought patterns have changed. No, what you find entertaining has changed. Your sense of humor has changed, right? The things that now you scroll on Instagram and you pay more attention to has changed. But I think what made it easier for me is that because I was so involved in the cello, I was pretty much a loner during high school, which is fantastic. But then what happened was being able to do that 7 days a week as opposed to doing 4 days a week and then taking the weekend off. I was really focused on this 7 days a week. And so then if you're focused on something 7 days a week, you get to fast track that process. And then you can do it instead of that change process starting to take root over the course of 10 years, it takes place in two, which is what happened to me.
Do you think you had the traditional Jamaican upbringing?
Oh, no, I don't think so. But then at the same time,
What was different?
in a way, let me tell you something. That I'll tell you this story. So this is, I don't think it's typical, but I think it's pretty funny. I didn't speak patois until I was 6 years old. I think that's pretty funny because in my house, my parents spoke patois. They just didn't speak it to me because in my house, we spoke the Queen's English. Now, fast forward, I can see how helpful that was, right?
Yeah.
Because then now, if you go to Campion, you go overseas, you understand things in a different way. You're able to communicate in a way that other people can understand you. And of course, communication today is so useful, right? And being able to articulate your points very, very clearly. So then I think that maybe was atypical. But then in terms of going to the beach, I was just at Dunsrivel or passing by Dunsrivel this weekend. I did all of that. So, in a sense, yes and no. Climbing mango trees, being outside, shooting marbles, right? Riding bikes, we had competitions, all those stuff, hot water balloon competitions or wars during the summer. We did all of that, right? So then it was yes and no, kind of 50-50.
Where in Jamaica did you grow up? That for a normal audience, they're gonna go say you're uptown now.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, I was born in Standpipe. So, I mean, you can say what you want about that. I don't know if you know what Standpipe is, but it's not that.
Okay. Well, that's a big difference. Being born in Standpipe, not speaking patois at 6, going to Campion College right down the road there, playing the cello in Standpipe as well.
I think that would
you'll be an anomaly.
Yeah.
I
define all odds, basically.
I was indeed. And, I'm very thankful for what my parents were able to do for me because I think they recognized what was happening and protected me from a lot because they saw the bigger picture, right? Which is what parents should do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my friends from Standpipe, they definitely don't speak like you. They definitely don't carry themselves like you. And they definitely don't play the cello.
They probably know me.
That wasn't a way out for them, especially their way out was like education and possibly a sport, but not something that's going to take them away from their earning potential.
Right.
But what was it like growing up in Standpipe then, seeing as though you grew up in Standpipe and then a little further down the road, it's like you enter a new universe, per se, Campion. Because I know Campion, I've been to Campion a few times. I have friends that are from Campion. So I know the world of Campion is not the typical Jamaican world.
You're absolutely correct.
And what were some of the challenges you faced?
Well, I tell you this. I took that same hustle mentality over to Campion College because one of my first businesses ever was selling candy and lollipops and chocolates. Campion.
I think all our
Come on now. There you go. The same mentality. So you go through Sandpipe, everybody has a hustle, right? That's where you learn that from, right? It's in the blood, it's in the DNA. And so going over to Campion, what I will tell you, one of the first things I realized going through and being amongst people that I hadn't seen before was that people traveled, not just like to see family for Christmas, people traveled like for fun. Because I didn't really know that as much. I had maybe one or two people in the family, but I didn't really see it. When you see it every day during lunch conversations, like, it gets March, April, and people are asking, hey, what are you doing for the summer? And then some people are like, I'm probably going to Spain for 2 months. What? What do you mean? What do you mean you're going to Spain? What do you mean you're going to Canada? What do you mean you're going to Japan for 6 weeks? That's crazy. So then that was the first mindset shift, being able to really encounter that in person. I think that's the first thing.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's also where you learn how to maneuver in different environments, becoming like a chameleon? In standpipe, you had to be a different version. In your house, you have to be a different version. And then when you go to Campion, you had to be a different version of yourself as well. So
Well, you know
you
what?
were
I
ever
agree.
changing to some extent?
I agree with that completely. In fact, I think there are people who believe that not changing or being the same person in every environment is somehow a positive, and I don't think that's the case. You ought to be able to shift not your values, keep who you are on the inside, right? But how you talk to your
Core.
friends on a at 10 o'clock on a Friday is not the same that you speak to an executive or a partner or at 11 o'clock on 11 a.m. on a Wednesday. It's not the same context at all. And so, yes, and it's a great skill to have. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. If you're listening to this, I'm talking to you, right? So it's a great skill. And I learned it very early on. You're correct. And so then going to Campion, very different behavior, right? Going through standby, very different. And what you've actually found is that it's actually benefited me quite greatly because now I travel and sometimes I'm in some of the most dangerous parts of the world, but I'm also from standby. This is actually pretty safe here, right? So I give you, like people say
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
Sao
yeah.
Paulo, Sao Paulo is one of the most dangerous cities in Brazil. It's fine for
Right,
me,
Sao Paulo.
right? It's fine for me
Yeah.
because I stand by it, right? So I think it does give
Yeah.
you a plus and a minus. I think other people from Campion would not be able to do that because they have not had that chameleon side of things.
So I have a question when it comes on to being a chameleon. When you look at yourself in the mirror, after, leaving home, walking down the road to go school, like you don't see yourself as a different person when you look at yourself in the mirror when you go back home. Didn't you find that challenging being a chameleon?
No, not at all. Not at all. The reason why, and I will tell you, this is why I think, which is why I'm glad we're getting into this. I think that's why people think that it can be deceiving, but it's not deceiving. What you are is that you're allowing the person that you're talking to be the most receptive to what you have to say. Because communication is if I say something to you, but you don't understand what I'm saying, then am I a good communicator? No. So then a great communicator is someone who makes sure that when I speak to you, you understand it, which means I'm responsible for what I'm saying and your understanding. You see what I'm saying? That's a really great communicator,
Yeah.
which is why great communicators use stories because stories are the easiest to understand because they're universal, right? So then it was always a case of I suppose to bring it full circle, serving other people by allowing the message to go to them in the way that they find most palpable. That's all.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. And after Campion, where did life take you after that?
I give you one more point on this. I'll give you one more point. Okay. So then, for example, let's say I were to go into standpipe and I was to start talking about, well, risk management and risk averse if you take your stocks and your bonds and then you do this. It's like that doesn't make sense. Yeah, exactly. Right?
Mhm.
And you start,
Mhm.
diversifying your S&P 500, right? But then if I say to you, all right, listen, man, if you put in $100,000 and you wait 6 months, this could potentially turn into 110,000, right? Or 150,000, right? Versus in that same 6 months, you'd have probably only earned 105. You probably would have only earned $500,000 if you just kept it in the savings or you did some. You see what I'm saying? No, it's like, oh, I'm doing this versus that, as opposed to you know all the jargon that someone in finance would want me to use or would probably understand better. So again, in that small example, you can see I'm giving the same message and we're having the same conversation. But then if you don't have that ability to change the words that you use and the body language that you use and the tone that you use, I think you might be missing some people. And I think that's a misservice.
Well, those languages and those communication styles is designed on purpose, designed on purpose to keep people out of those conversations. Do you think people they use languages as and the communication styles as a barrier to entry for the
Especially
regular man as well?
economically.
100%. 100%. Let me tell you, I think they do it purposely to keep out the 99% of people. Because I'll tell you this. This is my bicker with financial advisors. Many financial advisors, not all of them, but the majority, more than 50%. They specifically make up more complicated instruments, just tools that you could invest your money into the bank. Instead of just saying, hey, if you put your money into this broad index fund, you'll earn 10, 15, 18% per year, right? Just do this one thing and you'll make money. But the problem is that they don't get paid if it's just that simple. So then they make it more complicated so that they have to explain it to you. And then when you say, oh, this is so much information I don't understand, then they get to say, that's why I'm here. But it doesn't have to be that complicated. It doesn't have to use all that technical language. This is why I love the book,
Mhm.
The Simple Path to Wealth, because it's so simple that really you just need just maybe one, two, three, four things and just do that. Right? Which is exactly, it's like it doesn't have to be, if you want to accomplish being rich by in 40 years, you don't need to be that complicated. Now, if you want to get rich faster, well, that's some other things to talk about. But in 40 years,
Mhm.
you can almost do it just so simple that just buy the S&P 500, wait 40 years, and you retire a millionaire. It's really that simple.
And do you pass this knowledge along to common Jamaicans who don't know anything about economics, don't know anything about money? Them only know about the mattress, and them know about having a bank account, and that's basically it. I think most of the
Of
population we don't
course.
know what an investment actually is. So do you find it? Do you
Of
find
course.
time to kind of try to spread this knowledge?
Of course. Of course. I am very active on my social media and I'm also active on like in person as well, right? So when I'm here, I talk to people all day long. When I'm overseas, I talk to people who are not just Jamaican, but people always generally open up to me about money. Like how people will talk about, yo, did you see that goal from Messi, from Christie? That's how I talk about money. I'm very excited to talk about money and I love it. And it's not an egotistical thing. I just love talking about concepts, things that I didn't know, creative ways to do this. I love talking about it. Like even from city to city, from economy to economy, things that are done are always done slightly differently. And I love those nuances as well. It's always very cool to me.
At what age did you make money start working for you?
I think everything changed for me when I took a trip to California. And while I was looking from California, I was overlooking Malibu. I was in a drop top. I had parked. The drop top was behind me. And I was looking over at the water. I don't know what that water was called, but I'm looking over. It's a sunset. And I took a look at my phone and I was richer that day than when I started the day. In fact, I was richer at the end of that trip than when I started that trip. And that's how I knew if I could travel and end up with more money than when I traveled, than when I started traveling, that was something that wasn't common. And that was the first time. Now it wasn't a lot of money, but that was the first time that I realized I'm on the right path.
How do you? What's the right path? How can John Brown from down the street make that amount of money?
Of course. So it's not about there are two sides of the equation. It's not about how much money you earn, it's about how you make that money. To be very clear. Right? So one, big three, business, real estate, investing. You always need to be a part of the big three. I repeat them. Business, real estate, investing. Real estate, business, investing. That's it. Now, if you can focus yourself for the next 20 years on just doing these three things, promise you you'll make progress on your financial freedom. Because other people are just going for a high paying job. That's not it. They're just hustling. That's not it. Right? Then let me give you the actual formula here. So it's income. You need income. You say you need a job, some type of job. You invest in skills. You can go online. You can learn how to use Adobe. You can learn how to do Google ads. You can learn how to use TikTok shop. You can learn how to do Facebook ads. You can learn how to do podcast recordings. Some type of skill that becomes income. If you want to become a barber, that's fine. Wash cars, that's fine. You need income. That's where it starts. Okay? For me, it was cello. So I need income. Then you need assets. So the first asset that you need is you can start a business. Usually it's cheaper to get into a business than it is to do real estate. So you start your first asset, which is a business. So let's say, for example, you're going to go ahead and you're going to start a shop downtown. Cool, no problem. Start a corner shop. That's one asset. You can do a car rental, no problem. You can do an Airbnb, no problem. Start a vending machine. Warren Buffett's first business was a pinball machine, which is just those gumballs that you see. His first business, a pinball machine, first asset, right? If you want to start a car wash, same thing. Start a bar, same thing. Doesn't matter. You need something, your income goes into starting that first asset. Then what most people do is that, well, actually, what most people do is that they just have a job and then they spend that money. Incorrect. You need a job, you have the income. Notice I didn't say job, but you do need income. Then you have the asset. Then you take the money from the asset and put that into investments. So then let's say you have vending machines and you have 5 vending machines. Those 5 vending machines, the income from that goes into stocks. Okay, let's go again. Those 5 vending machines, the income from these 5 vending machines, that goes into a car rental business. You have a car rental business here. The income from the car rental business goes into Airbnb. You have an Airbnb here. The income from Airbnb goes into real estate. Right?
Money is moving.
So you have Airbnbs. Right. So then you're moving from income to asset to investments. And then you go to lifestyle. That is the secret.
In Jamaica, it seems a bit reversed. In Jamaica, a lot of people go after the lifestyle, the big car, the big house, the nice clothes, the jewelry. How do you guide people as against that?
Well, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. You should get it. I'm just saying that I don't want you to pay for it. I want your assets to pay for it. Because I don't want to I don't want to pay for my kids' school fee. No, I want my vending machines to do that. I don't want to pay for my trip to Bali. No. I want my car rentals to do that. I want my vet business to do that. Right? I want my 3 corner shops, my cafes, my bars to do that. I don't want to pay for it. Let the assets pay for it. So then if you just have the correct order, then you can have a BMW every year if you wanted to, because you have an asset that pays for the BMW. That's it. I want you to have the BMW. Just do it in the correct order. That's all.
What about the people that just don't want to do all of this? They don't want to be managing multiple businesses at the same time.
Well, no, that's no problem. So if you don't want to do business and you don't want to do things in correct order, no problem. You'll work until you die, and that's fine. There's lots of people who do that, and they're fine. That's fine. I am not like that, right? You gotta call a spade, right? It's no problem, and that's where the
But not
data
everyone's
is,
a businessman.
right? Cost of living is going up. No, that's true. That's true. But then I didn't say that you have to do a business that you don't have to go and be an insurance broker. I didn't say that. Everybody can do a corner shop. Everybody can do a car wash. Everybody can do vending machines, right? Everybody, we understand real estate. You don't want to do real estate? Cool. You can do house flipping. You can do painting. You can do a lawn mowing business. There are people who own lawn mowing businesses and they've never touched a lawnmower. You can do a social media management business. You can do an online shop. Doesn't matter. There's people, this is so cool. So they have a job. They use their job to pay for YouTube. So they're paying for a voice actor. They're paying for a video editor. They're paying for a thumbnail designer. So they're using their job to pay for all of these things. So they're not using their own voice. They're paying someone else to do all of the parts of the YouTube video. But they own the channel. And then they're starting 1, 2, 3 channels, and then they're using that money to pay for real estate, right? So like this person, they don't need to earn a lot of money. They don't need to go ahead and earn $200,000 a year. No, because the YouTube is going to do that, and then the YouTube is going to pay for the real estate. And then after 10 years, you're in the same job as this person, and you're thinking, how on earth are you going to Italy every single summer? Now we understand why.
Do you think that is possible for everyone?
Or how possible is this
Every single person can be rich.
For a middle-class Jamaican, for example, a middle-class Jamaican?
Every single person can be rich. What stops people is that, and I want to say rich, every single person can be financially free. The reason why I say that is because there are 2 sides to financial freedom. One is how much you earn and how much you spend. What happens to so many people is that they start earning more and then they spend all of it. That's a mistake. People don't keep their lifestyles the same, right? So then they don't give the money enough time to compound. It's one of the biggest mistakes I see. The second thing is people think that you're going to grow your income but not have to grow as a person. That doesn't make sense. You can't say that you want to be an owner when you don't even show up on time.
Yeah.
You want to be your own boss, but you're not showing up. Imagine if you're the boss and your employee shows up 90 minutes late, but you can't show up on time for yourself. You can't meet your own deadlines. How does that work? You don't know how to make sales. You don't know how to, pick up the phone and make phone calls. There's a lot of things that you have to grow as a person. And so then that's why I recommend everyone is that you start reading because it changes who you are inside.
Yeah. I kind of get what you say, but I kind of disagree a little bit. I don't think everyone has the potential to be financially free.
Give it
I
to
don't
me.
think
Tell
everyone
me
does.
why.
Like, realistically, we all start the race of life at different stages, and not everyone is going to go through the same challenges and path and book up on the same books as you, or me, or Tonniel. You get what I say? And if everybody rich, that means no one is rich.
No. I don't. Not everybody needs to be rich. That's not what I said.
Mm-hmm.
I corrected myself very intentionally.
But not everyone will be financially free. Not everyone will be financially free because the system crashes if everyone is financially free.
Well, no, because I disagree. Because they've actually extrapolated this argument before. What actually ends up happening is that you think that people are not going to work once they're financially free. That's not true. I did that for 2 months and I was miserable. It doesn't work, right? Work is a very core part of who we are as people. But then what happens is that you get to work because you want it. I know what happens when you work because you want it. You work harder. Who has ever been in a game that they're having fun in and they're like, oh, well, I'm enough. No, you know what happens when you stop? It's because you messed up and this is not fun anymore and you want to quit, right? When you're not having fun is when you quit.
Mm-hmm.
But when you love it, you go extra hours. So then imagine a world where everybody loved going to work. Oh, imagine that.
But we have to be real. How many people are going to love going to be a janitor?
There are so many people that love being a janitor. Are you kidding?
Yeah, but how many? Is it going to be enough for the needs? What's the percentage? Just a small minority that actually enjoy that.
But here's what happens. What we need is the people who enjoy being a janitor to be janitors instead of having to get a higher paying job because of the bills. Because if they were financially free, then they would choose to be a janitor. I said that all of the janitors would be people who loved it, not because they had to be.
Yeah. So what would be your argument for the wealth disparity then?
Well, obviously, this is a perfect world, right? So we can't say that will it actually happen? The chances are not likely, right? Because there are a lot of other factors that happen in society. We understand this, right? We have to be practical. However, do I think it's possible? Yeah. Yes. The reason why I'm saying it's possible is because the person who's sitting there listening to me, I was that person wondering, is it possible for me? Yeah. That person who's asking that question, they need to know that it is possible for them. And I don't want to give them an excuse that, no, that's for somebody else. No, it's for you. So there's no excuse for you. Okay? So that person. Okay? So that's very important. But as far as wealth disparity goes, that's a very serious problem. I think wealth inequality is actually one of the biggest problems that faces the global economy today, not just internationally, but internationally as well. So then, for example, Colombia has one of the worst income inequalities in South America. But then what you happen is that there's so much crime, and then there's so much poverty, and then there's so much corruption, and these things tend to go hand in hand. But then if you had a stronger middle class, a stronger, responsibility to the nation, you have a lot less, things sliding under the table in Colombia. So then that's what tends to happen when you don't have a strong, a strong cohesion. But it's not that you want to go all the way to communism, because communism doesn't work. But capitalism works great when it has checks and balances, for sure.
Do you think those checks and balances are in place in Jamaica?
I'm not sure. I will say I think the economy has done really great over the past 10 years. I will say that the Jamaican economy has improved quite tremendously from where it was in 2010. And so I think that's one thing that whoever was in power from that time to that time, kudos to you guys, doing really well because other countries have not recovered as much as Jamaica has. So, foreign investment coming in, obviously there's some political debate on whether that's good for the country or not. But economically speaking, it has definitely impacted Jamaica greatly. And so that's a really good thing.
Yeah, but you wouldn't say Jamaica is a capitalistic country when the political parties don't even identify as real capitalists.
It is a capital economy. No, politically capitalist. That may be up for discussion. But capitalism means that if you wanted to go and sell goods in half a tree, right? You wanted to go and sell bag juice, right? The government wouldn't say, if you sell bag juice and you get $500 that day, we're going to take $500 and give you 50. No. What happens here is that if you go and earn $500 with your own blood, sweat, and tears and half a tree, you get to keep that. That's the incentive of capitalism, which means that you get to take a risk on yourself. That's a fantastic system because everybody is selfish and everybody would love to take a bet on themselves. That works.
You think it works when it essentially will become a monopoly when you have one man selling everybody the bag juice to sell to a smaller person? So all of the wealth get concentrated at the top.
Yeah, that is where checks and balances comes, right? Because there are monopolies which do work. For example, having a train monopoly works, right? In a country where you have different train companies, that wouldn't work because then you'd have to organize, right? That wouldn't necessarily work.
For
Trains
infrastructure, I can see that.
Right. So then there's certain places where it makes sense. However, you also have different large companies. For example, you have a few large companies that do a lot of work. Let's say 4 companies have 80% of the market. That might be a problem, right? Because then they dictate prices, etc. And when they overstep, that's why you need independent agencies to check them out. Now, whether that's happening and how effective that is, I haven't done my research, but I would say that that's necessary in any capitalist economy.
You think capitalism is what Jamaica needs to go forward? I think there's another system that might help us.
No, it's capitalism. Capitalism
Why?
is the answer. I'll tell you exactly why. Because capitalism promotes innovation. And you need innovation. For example, Stephen Crave has given so many jobs to so many Jamaicans. The bike riders that are going around Jamaica because they know delivery. That was a Jamaican that started that, right? Now, in a capitalist economy, that doesn't happen. But his incentive is to solve a problem and then get paid for it. Things like that is what capitalism incentivizes. That's why it's so rewarding.
Yeah.
Because then if you can participate in that, you can do AI. Go ahead.
You just give a previous argument to that. The argument about the janitor being a janitor because they enjoy it. Wouldn't people find solace in finding things that they actually do enjoy? This man enjoys inventing. Wouldn't he invent more if it was to benefit society versus to benefit himself? Because most people. What's the main reason a man go into business? Profit, right?
Right. So then here's the thing. I don't think there exists business out there that don't benefit people in some way, right? Because people hand over money when they think what they're paying for benefits them. So then those people are benefiting even if we don't agree. For example, I don't like cigarettes, but the people who smoke cigarettes pay for them because they get benefit from it. Does that make sense?
No, wait. That's a perfect example that we can counter then. They get intrinsic benefit from it. They get value from it.
Right.
But if we look at a bigger picture,
society might disagree. Right.
Yeah, society, medically, everything disagree to it.
Right.
So that would be an aspect where capitalism is driving something that is deliberately arming people.
Especially
because the wheels are turning so fast, you can't even counteract it because counteracting it would be putting a wrench in your own system.
Right. So completely agree. So there have been places that have banned cigarettes. Fantastic. However, here's what I'm
Mhm.
that wasn't the point I was making necessarily. What I'm saying is every business
Yeah,
benefits
yeah,
somebody. So then just I don't want to switch the topic before we address the first thing because we can get there. But the first thing was what I was responding to,
yeah.
which is
Mm.
can there be a business? No, that wasn't it. It was a business that benefits people if there is a janitor and that person wants to be a janitor, would someone do it because it doesn't benefit them? It doesn't benefit society, but it benefits them. Would they not enjoy it more because it benefits society? That sounds good in theory, but that's not human nature. We are wired for survival, which means that it's best for us to do things that benefit us because it's in alignment with who we are internally, which is why it's so hard, I think, to move from survival mindset to success mindset because success is about taking risks, right? And risks, as you would imagine, are like red flare alert bells in your mind. Like, don't take a risk because you could die. You could die from a risk, right? The world could end. So then survival is not that. Survival is do anything at all costs to keep you safe. So then what does that do for us? We are very selfish people, which is fine. Which is why when you go to someone, you don't say, hey, I want you to buy this thing because it's going to benefit me and I'm going to get rich from you. No, you don't say that. No one says that. No, you say, hey, I think you should buy this because that shirt will look great on you. Right? That shirt will look great on you. I think this haircut would be good for you. Right? I think those shoes would make her like you. Right? Because that's how people are. So then we can extrapolate that, right? If we had a society where, and we see this, which is why the top ten biggest businesses in the world, 9 of them are from America. And what has happened in places that don't produce innovation is that their economies have been stagnant in comparison to the ones that do. So then, for example, you have places like Singapore, like Switzerland, like Abu Dhabi, like Saudi Arabia, all of like Dubai, all of these cities that promote innovation that say if you go, you take a risk, you're going to keep most, if not all, of the reward. That is a pretty good incentive to go there and take a risk.
But wouldn't you say the places that you name, they have more resources so they can take these risks?
Well, I think everywhere has resources, not in the same ways, but everyone has people, and you can create resources out of thin air. For example, look at El Salvador in the past 10 years. El Salvador decided that they would start buying Bitcoin. That has changed the entire country. In fact, I'm not sure if you remember this, but the beginning of 2025, the president paid the light bill for every citizen. Just imagine if we did that for even,
Mm-mm.
just one day in Jamaica. But he was able to do
El
that.
Salvador
And
is
that happened
El
in one
Salvador.
lifetime.
El Salvador is a different story. I don't think that's a good example.
Why
El,
not?
Well,
El,
Why
Sal-
not? Tell us
why
why
do you
not.
say?
El, there's a lot. El Salvador is a nuanced situation. They're basically operating under a pseudo dictator, what many people would call a dictator. So that's a different kind of
Well,
mindset where one person monopolizes leadership and everything in the country.
well, my example was not necessarily about I hear what you're
No,
saying.
no, I
That's
get what the
debatable.
point you're trying to make. I get the point where you're trying to make. You're
It was
saying
about
that
innovation.
innovation breeds success, which in turn will benefit everyone in the society. But I don't think that
Which
that
is
benefit would be distributed equitably
Throughout the
okay, well,
society.
throughout the
you're talking
society.
about the back end. You're talking about the back end. That's fine.
The
But what
back
my
end, I'm
response
talking
to you
about the
was
people.
right. My response to you was, do you think Jamaica has enough resources? Oh, that's not what you asked. But other countries may have more resources than we
Yeah,
do.
so I
What's
said that part, yeah.
interesting is that you can also compare it to Singapore. Singapore
Mm.
doesn't have as many resources as other places. But what Singapore did is that it's actually kind of funny because Singapore actually modeled their economy off of Jamaica
Yeah.
because Jamaica was supposed to become an information hub, and that's what Singapore did. And again, it's misunderstanding what resources can look like. The people are the resources. Invest in the people, and the people will take the country forward. Singapore didn't find
But
oil. Oh, they trained all of their people and said, we're going to make education free now. And everybody's going to go out there. We're gonna give you money so that you can go ahead and start these businesses. And now Singapore has just taken over from all the countries neighboring and all over the world. That's what Jamaica can do if it does it in the same way. Again, Singapore didn't start rich. It didn't have rich parents, like people like to say. Oh, it's easy for them. Singapore had rich parents. No, Singapore was like us. They just made different choices.
but
I don't think Singapore, like people always use that Singapore, Jamaica example, and I don't buy into it. Yes, the system was there. Yes, the ideas were there, but we overlook a big, big, big difference. The culture of the people. We're just not that kind of people. We are a rebellious people.
What do
For
you
a
mean by
system
that?
like that to work, mean that we will not fall in line to that. A man will not
Okay.
accept that, or political situation will not accept that. If everyone was to say,
Mm-hmm.
we're not the kind of people that giant line, for example. Every man got things
Mm-hmm.
say, yo, why me a giant line? Bad man a giant line. Our culture is totally
Mm-hmm.
different. You get what I say?
Mm-hmm.
And with a
Of
cultural
course.
difference, that means your resources are different. And it's harder to manage a resource that is the resource being the people that are so, how would you say, independent in thought. You
Mm-hmm.
know, most Jamaicans won't accept the toe of the line of the government, especially when there's
All
such a
right.
lack of trust in the government as well. In Singapore,
So here's the
they
thing.
trust the people, trusted the government, they trusted their leadership.
Yes and no, right? Because there is still a level of the government is going to be involved. It's still the government, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're right that the cultures are very different. So then it won't manifest in the same way. I agree with you there. But to say that it's not possible, I disagree. Because
I'm not saying it's
the
impossible. I'm just saying the example is one that I've heard so many times that they always overlook the cultural aspect of it, which, to be honest,
of
the
course,
cultural aspect affects how a country operates so much more than even the resources in the country to some extent, because the people are
I
indeed the
agree.
most important resource.
I agree. Okay, so then we can take a similar example, we can bring it closer to home. We can compare what's happening in Guyana because I've been to Guyana and what's happening right now is that there's an oil boom. Ridiculous what's happening. But then what has actually happened is that the government said we're going to give every citizen, uh, I think they said 100,000, but in Guyanese dollars, we're going to invest in the citizens of the country. We're going to take the oil money and give it back to citizens so that they can go ahead and start building businesses. They're going to be debt free. A bunch of different things are happening right now. The reason I'm saying that is similar culture, closer than Singapore is. Guyana is closer in culture to us. But what I'm saying is, even though it won't happen in the same way, Jamaicans are some of the most brilliant business minds in the world, right? So the principle of investing in the resource that is the humans of your country still going to be the same. Still going to be the same,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's the same principle. It might manifest differently. We might start different businesses. Like, for example, finance services out of Singapore, some of the best in the world. But we might not be. We might be, we know obviously that India is famous for call centers. That might be, you know, that might be just them. We might do something different, but we don't know until we have that investment in the people. That's what it is.
but for tell you the truth, I believe in I'm a Jamaican people, but sometimes I believe I find it hard to make that decision. I'm going to give you an example because I'm a
Mhm,
studied man and Davaine is also a studied man,
mhm,
right? We use the
mhm.
resources that could offer us. However, we still find ourselves not giving back to the country. We find ourselves overseas. So don't you think that if people were, if Jamaica invested in their resources, the greatest resources to the people, how can you get these people to stay in Jamaica and not be a part of the brain drain problem?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. There's a couple of different things. One, I don't think you are not investing in Jamaica. Your audience does have Jamaican influence, right? And so even by bringing people on that can edify your audience in Jamaica, like your audience, this will reach your audience. Someone sitting in Standpipe or sitting in Grand Spain or sitting in Tivoli is going to watch this and you're going to say, huh, if that guy did it, if these guys did it, why not me? That's not to be glossed over as not meaningful. Okay, it's very meaningful. It's very significant. That's the first thing. Second, uh, I think there are a couple of different things. So when you're multiplying money in an economy, when it circulates, that allows the economy to flourish. So $100, I pay you $100. You take that same $100, you go buy a beef patty. That beef patty turns into a bag juice at the corner shop down the road, and then etc. etc. So then that doesn't happen if you are not in this circle, because the dollar from Spain to get to Jamaica takes a much longer time to travel. Doesn't happen in less than 30 days. So then one of the ways that I think helps people when they're overseas is to shop from people in Jamaica. On overseas, shop from people in Jamaica. I have a book. My proceeds of my book go to helping people in Jamaica. You can find so many different things like that. Buy Jamaican beef patties, ship them to where you are, right? If you have so many different options of how to get money into Jamaica that gives you value, then you can do that. Just allow your money to circulate here as opposed to there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But,
Makes sense, but then you say it go against the individualistic nature where you say, man, I survive.
and being in a
So you
capitalistic
agree with me now?
society,
No.
survival
I'm
is
just using your own arguments, I'm not saying that man isn't individualistic. I in my perception of human
Uh-huh.
society and how I see it, the first instinct is definitely survival,
Yes.
procreate, and then to protect what you procreate. Right?
Right.
But in order for you to survive, it's better in numbers. So if you're benefiting
Right.
society, you are protecting more as well. And your offsprings will be protected growing up in a guided system. For example, the honeybee, they do a drone-like situation where they just contribute
Yeah.
one thing for their hive to grow. And that is how they live. Unfortunately,
Right.
we as human beings, we all see the world differently, so we can't have that mindset. But I think deep down for
Right.
everyone, after they survive, next thing is to help them fellow man. Because I think people are intrinsically good as well. It's just
I
that
agree
their
with that. I
perception
agree
of
with that.
good might be different. So I don't think anyone even
I agree.
starts out to become an evil billionaire. My guy might
Mhm.
just start out and say, I want podcasting so we can educate the entire world so everyone can start a business and everybody can get rich. But then the podcast gets so big and he gets so detached from it, he doesn't realize, oh, fuck, the pollution that I'm putting out there on the podcast is actually affecting people negatively. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's so big, I can't stop now.
the
I'm
weed
caught
Right.
is
up in
running
this trap.
away.
I'm caught up in this trap. You get what I'm saying?
I agree.
And I do
100%.
agree with
Right.
you saying that it's good to have faith that everyone has the potential to succeed. And I do genuinely believe that. From where I'm coming from,
Boom.
I'm not supposed to be sat in this chair, bro. You
Right.
get what I'm saying?
Right.
But at the same time, another guy that grew up right next to me, he's not sat in this chair.
Right.
So
I know
I
exactly what you
also have
mean.
to take into consideration that it might be possible for everyone, but it also is not possible for everyone. Everyone
Right.
is playing a different game, and the game of life don't necessarily mean that we all go through the same stages at the same time.
No, I
I
completely
can
agree.
zero the game in a year, a next man 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
a next man it need 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? So
No, for sure.
the idea that success is possible for everyone is great. In a capitalistic system, that is the apple. That is the apple
Mm-hmm.
that keeps people chasing down that system. I asked Tonniel, I like capitalism because it's easy. Capitalism to me is an easy solution,
It's
Right.
very
But
individual.
for the individual,
Easy,
but for society,
it's easy for call upon yourself and try to go forward, but get a group of people together and with the same mindset for go forward.
mhm,
It's a difference.
yeah, you can't even get Jamaicans if you even agree upon,
The same
let's say,
football team.
the football team, to pick the football team. You can't even get them to agree for that, for lack of a better example. You get what I say, bro?
Yeah.
And but Kadeem, I do like the way you portray things, you put it in a way, say, oh, it is possible for you, and there's an audience for that. And we need people like that. We need people that are starting
For sure.
businesses to encourage other people so it can trickle down and branch down as
Yeah.
well. But we also need people
Precisely.
not to get lost in the idea of success and money as the only way forward as well. The idea of say you
No,
work for
absolutely.
someone until you die, that's not necessarily a bad thing, bro. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Everyone has something to contribute to society. A farmer will be tilling the
Absolutely.
soil until him get buried in the soil himself.
Well,
But
I
that
said
man
that.
to
I said
me
that.
probably contribute more to
Yeah, I
society
said that.
than yeah.
Yeah, precisely
Yeah,
the
we
same
get
thing.
where
If,
that's
if
man.
everybody had financial freedom, I think we would find our passions a lot sooner, and more people would be doing what they actually love. I will tell you, more people would. I think more people would be working longer hours if they had financial freedom, because you'd realize that work is actually a big part of your life and bigger than you thought possible if you didn't hate it.
Yeah. 100 people, 100%. A lot of people that retire from work, they realize they die quicker when they don't find something else to replace work. That is a
It's so
fact. That is
obvious.
a proven.
Yeah.
It's a proven
So
fact.
obvious.
They lose the routine. They lose a purpose. People need purpose. That's how we started the podcast
Right.
asking you what your purpose is. And we need
So then
purpose. But
you know, when I first heard about financially independent retire early, that's the FIRE movement, right? I thought it would be cool
Mhm.
to retire early, but I will say this. I don't think the retire early is actually a goal anymore. I think financial independence, yes, definitely. Go for financial independence. But retiring, it's a stupid goal, right? Because then what are you gonna do? If let's say you retire at 30, what do you do for the next 70 years? What do you do for the next 60 years, 50 years? That's a crazy notion to just do nothing. So then now it's get financial independence so you don't have to worry about money anymore. But then you
Mhm.
always have to remember what comes next.
Yeah, there's always going to be something next.
So,
Always.
do you think that if I get to the age of, make we say, 50, and I'm still not financially free, should I throw in the towel?
Well, one, let me just say, if your goal is to be financially free, no. If you don't have the goal to be financially free, which is exactly, there's some people that are fine with working until the day they die, which I know we laughed about it, but there's some people who choose that. I have nothing to say to those people when it comes to financial independence. I'm not going to make you miserable because I think you should be miserable. That doesn't make sense. If that's what you want, that's great. Do that. That's not what I want. And I said we laughed, but I really meant that. That's not what I want. If that's you, fine. So then, if you want to be financially freedom, if you want to be financially independent and you find yourself at 50, it is still possible. Yes. But understand that because of the choices that you made, and maybe you had a late head start, or maybe life happened, no problem. No, it's not a walk in the park for you anymore. Because if you start at 15, if you start at 20, if you start at 25, you can invest a small change because money is cheaper in the future. And then you can just wait 50 years, but you bought your freedom 50 years ago. If you have to buy your freedom instead of 50 years, in 10 years, that's going to be expensive.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
now it's
more
an
energy
uphill
and time.
sprint. Now it's an uphill sprint. It's hard, but it's possible.
Yeah.
But understand,
And to be honest,
sprinting
Tony,
uphill is not
Tony,
easy.
most people, most millionaires actually happen later in life.
Yeah,
Nowadays, it's just that it's
not
Right.
everybody have the same patience.
Right. But then also understand that it doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take 10 years. Usually it takes about 10 years of doing stuff for anything. And it's usually like year 7, year 8, where you're like, this might actually work, which means that you're doing really just a bunch of things for 5, 6 years.
trial and
And
error.
it's not just you're trying stuff for 3 weeks and then you take 6 months off for 7 years. No, that's 7 years of on it. And then maybe in the 7th year, you're like, okay, I can see how this could work. Right? So it's 7 years of actually really pressing towards your goals. So then it's possible. What I would say is at 50, just like the analogy, sprinting up the hill, you can't just start sprinting. That's not going to work. You don't have the same energy, right? There's a lot more you need to learn. So if you're just starting, understand that you do need to start from, okay, I'm going to walk up the hill. I've made a decision. How do I start actually making progress towards doing that? How do I work on my stamina? What are some habits that I need to cut away, right? So that I can get there in actually 10 years to 15 years because I'm 50 now. I can do this by the time I'm 60. It's not going to happen by the time I'm 51. But even though I understand that I don't have as much energy, if I plan out the 10 years that I have in front of me, I can almost guarantee I can do it in 10 years, but I know I can't in 2.
All right.
Yeah.
I am 15 years old. I'm a Jamaican youth in the middle of high school, basically. What advice would you give me for the next 10 years of my life so I can go towards being financially free by, like we say, by the age of 40?
No problem. This is a great question. So I invest in skills and I get around rich people. So the first thing, you need to invest in skills because when you get around rich people and you don't have anything to offer them, that doesn't work, right? But then if you have a lot of skills, but you're selling those skills to people who can afford to pay you very highly, that doesn't make sense either. So the skills that you need to learn in today's world, you need to learn AI, right? You need to learn marketing. So go ahead and learn how to use Adobe Suite. Learn how to run Facebook ads. Learn how to use Google Ads. Learn how to do these things. Learn how to make content, right? Good video content. Learn about photography. Learn how to write well. Learn how to speak well. Learn sales. Learn persuasion. Learn business. Learn how the language of business works. Cool. Now you understand these are the skills. And when you go over here, how do you get around rich people? There's a study that showed that the biggest advantage to Harvard graduates or any Ivy League graduate is that once they move from a place that's lower income into a high income area, that's the biggest change and the biggest benefit is to those low income students. Because if you are already high income and then you went to Harvard and then you left Harvard, your neighborhood, even if you throw a shovel at the next person's house, you're going to be rich because you're in that neighborhood. So then that change isn't that drastic because you're already rich and then you went to Harvard. Now you're just going to continue to be rich. But for someone who's low income, going around and then seeing that your classmate drives a convertible Mercedes, that's life changing for you. So now those people become your clients, they become your partners, you get to invest with them. So then for you, get to rich universities, spend your time in rich cafes, go to the nicer part of the neighborhood, go to the parks, go to the cafes.
22 minutes.
I am telling you, go there. Spend your time there. Learn the conversations. Make friends there. Because those are the people who you're going to sell to, partner with, and invest with. Get their numbers. Learn how to be charismatic. Meet people over there. Because you cannot sell $100,000 or $100 million projects to people who only earn $20,000 a year.
But as a for example, a lower class person, to rub shoulders with rich people, for example, to be able to network with them and have these opportunities, access to these opportunities, like how you get there, how you get into their clubs, how you get into where they are to even say hi to them.
I just told you. So you need to be in the physical proximity. And it's going to be uncomfortable. It will suck. You will get that paper ball crushed up, thrown at you when you're practicing. Yeah, it's going to happen. But you have to decide if that's worth more, the embarrassment is worth more than who you are trying to become. And some people may not make that choice. They may say that, oh, my comfort is worth more, which is fine. You might be listening and you're saying, I don't want to go around rich people and, make them feel like I'm, okay, if that's you, no problem. For the person who understands what I'm saying, which is that this is a ticket for you to actually go and change your life, that person will take that ticket and go use it. I'm talking to that person. It's possible, and so just go do it. But then when you get there, you need skills, which is why you have skills to offer. Again, remember, one of my skills was the cello. So then I got to talk to people who I would not have otherwise gotten to talk to if I didn't play the cello. And then afterwards, I was really good at money. So then now people could talk to me about money. And then you keep upgrading your skills and you keep going. But it's always skills.
Nice one.
Fair enough. How do you define success? After all of this, what is your definition of success? As simple as you could put it.
Being content with where you are. Well, this is one of my favorite things. You can always tell someone who is truly successful by how much they're willing to help you, right? How much they're willing to give you advice, how much they're willing to see you, rise up, right? Because someone who doesn't feel Like, for example, someone who's at 2 million but feels like they should be at 40 million, that person doesn't feel successful. So you might be talking to them, not knowing that they want to be at 40, but knowing that they are at 2, and you yourself are at 10,000, and you're like, why won't this person help me? Because in their mind, they're not successful, but to you, they are. But to the person who's
Mhm.
at 2 million and all they wanted was 1, there's nothing you can tell that person. There's nothing you can tell that person. That's success.
Yeah. What about happiness? Is it the same thing though? Is success happiness?
I think happiness was defined by Aristotle very greatly. And people should look up this quote by Aristotle. I think it's Aristotle. If it could be Socrates, but the quote is this. It's not word for word, but this I'm paraphrasing. Happiness is found in the meaningful actions that people take towards their purpose. There's very key words in there, which is that happiness is found in action that's meaningful to you, that is aligned with who you identify as.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. Which means that
Yeah.
it
It's
makes
cool
sense,
because
right?
him
Which is
do
why it makes sense, right? Why when you retire, you wither away because you stop action. You can't be happy doing nothing. Even if your action is being the best HOA manager or being the best grandparent or, being the, now your job, now that you're retired, is to, let's say, make the neighborhood flowers beautiful. Even if that is your mission, it is still something and it makes you happy.
All right.
Wonderful.
You hear that? Wonderful, wonderful. I think we can end it there. So, you have any questions for us or anything else you want to mention that we didn't cover?
Yeah.
No, of course. So, of course, Full Money is out in stores. It's going to be in Kingston Bookshop. It's going to be in Sangster's Bookshop. They're carrying books, which is great. I wasn't in Jamaica for my first book, but I am for my third book. So, Full Money is going to be on the shelves. March 18th is when that book launches. I think it's going to be in the bookshelves before we have an exclusive in Jamaica, which is what I really, really wanted. So, when you see this, at the Kingston Bookshop, Hex's Sangsters, it's going to be their Full Money. I am so excited for people to get their hands on this book. It's written so that anybody, literally speaking, because remember I travel, this is actually translated in Spanish and Portuguese as well. Anybody can pick up this book from anywhere on their financial journey. Everything that we talked about is we dive into that more deeply in the book. Anywhere on your financial freedom, from there to the end, that's where it will take you. From there, that point where you are, to the end. That's where the book will take. And that's why it took me 6 years to write this book. It's a fantastic book. I will tell you, the greatest book I've ever written, I've ever read on financial freedom, and I've read a lot of books. So you should definitely get that book. And if you want to connect with me, I am one of those people that answers my DMs. So you can reach me on Instagram. I am Kade. I am KADE _ Connect with me there. I respond to DMs. You can find me on YouTube too, but YouTube doesn't have DMs, at least not yet.
Oh, they're actually working on that.
Yeah, true.
See if they
I
want
know,
to
I
change it to
know.
a messaging platform. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the main benefit of them reaching out to you apart from do you offer like mentorship as you mentioned earlier a little bit?
So all my courses are free, right? So people say, no, do I have to, nope. All my courses are free. If you message me for the link, I'll send them all to you, right? Everything that I just talked. So there's a 14-part challenge, freedom challenge, which will show you how to go from changing your mindset to understanding credit to starting your first asset to financial freedom. It's a 14-day challenge, and every day has homework, completely free. There's a $1 million roadmap from zero to $1 million in real estate, also free. I'll show you how to work on your public speaking. I'll show you how to work on your branding. I'll show you how to make sales better. This is all free, right? Now, obviously, we do have a higher tier for people who want to work with me one-on-one. We do have that. However, you don't have to, because my philosophy is if I can make you, let's say, $100,000 for free, would you buy my book? Yeah, probably. And if that book goes and makes you $1 million,
And you make it.
would you want to work with me personally?
True.
Yeah, probably. So then I'm just willing to wait a long time because I can.
Yeah, you're investing in it. And I'm gonna check out your 14-day challenge, and I'm gonna tell the people my perception of it. The people that tune in.
I'd love
But
to.
Kadeem,
I'd
thank
love
you
to
so
know.
much for joining us. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this. This year we're trying to interview a lot more people when it comes to basically changing their lives philosophically, financially, spirituality, health, medically, all the alleys we're trying
The
to
alleys
see.
are going down.
Yeah, all
Yes,
the
yes.
alleys to see
That's
how
what's
we
up.
can get people to change. Because as you said, you have to take from different basket to make you into one person. The man that has
Precisely.
many different plants in his garden has the most beautiful garden, probably. But yeah,
Right,
man,
right.
thank you very much for passing through. People, please reach out to him.